Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Chef Will Robinson. Hi, Will. Welcome.
Hello, Miss Laura. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's exciting to have you here. We're going to tell your story. And first, let's start by where you're currently living.
Okay. I am located in Portsmouth, Ohio. Southern Ohio's one of Ohio's southernmost points, with the slogan of where Southern hospitality begins. Located on the beautiful Ohio River, where the Ohio and the Scioto rivers meet.
Oh, and is this where you're from originally?
Correct. Born and raised. On the
Oh,
playground
okay.
is where I spend most of my day.
Pardon?
On the playground is where I spend most. It's a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I give up. I apologize.
That's all right. Um, so you are a chef, and how long have you been doing the chef part? Like, has it always been something
Uh,
you've been interested in?
yes, lifelong passion. The only thing that I've ever known outside of being compassionate to people is culinary, the use of these culinary hands. And it began from as a child. My grandmother had 17, my mom's mom had 17 children. A lot of them cooked. And by grandmother Doris Bell on my father's mom, was a master baker. And so I had a great passion from them, and then it carried on into my home economics teacher, Ann Summers, who passed away, who really pushed me forward in my culinary dreams.
Wow. So you went to school for culinary
Yes,
arts.
yes. I did all the home economics and stuff while in high school, and the Future for Homemakers of America classes. And then I went on to culinary school, both in Providence, Rhode Island, and then in Louisville, Kentucky, at Johnson and Wales Universities in Providence and Sullivan College in Louisville, Kentucky. Finished up at Hocking College in Nelsonville.
And that was a culinary program as well?
Yes, it's really one of the most underrated culinary programs in the state of Ohio.
Oh, I hadn't heard of it either. Now, I've certainly
Yeah.
heard of Johnson and Wales. As we chatted earlier, I lived in New England for over 20 years, and I'm very familiar with Johnson and Wales. I had friends that had been there. And so
Mhm.
that's a lot of exciting education you got there.
Yeah,
So,
I was sculpted by the best.
and
I was
so
very fortunate.
very fortunate. Yes. So when you got out of school, what was your first experience as being a chef?
Well, my first experience was actually working at Lucasville Prison, and then that scared me. I was a young guy, and it was not too long after the original riots, and I was just not cut out for that job. So I went from there to Hillview Retirement Center, and I thought that was a job I was meant to do forevermore. I had a really good relationship with the seniors there. They called me Bill. I learned about Wars Rarebit and things that I didn't learn in culinary school. Of feeding the elderly and listening to their stories and their tales, and it really enriched my life a great deal. But eventually, Columbus came a calling, and I had to go progress and spread my wings, I guess.
So you were in Columbus, Ohio, and was that a catering job or?
No, Columbus is where I went to magnify my culinary dreams, to work. I felt like Portsmouth was behind the eight ball a little bit as far as um, what they could do, what I could do in Portsmouth, to be mainstream culinary. I knew that there was not many restaurants. There was like the River, and then there was Bob Evans and Shoney's, and pretty much the Hamburger Inns and everything else. The places like Harold's, Harold Micklethwaite's, Harold's Restaurant, and the uh, downtown restaurants where they serve the great city chicken. Uh, Down by the West End Daycare, those places were far gone and far removed, and the OK&E restaurants, and so I just decided that I wanted to go to Columbus and spread my wings,
Mm. So
and
was
that's what I did.
was that at a restaurant or?
Well, the first restaurant I went to in Columbus um, was it was a Damon's restaurant in
Mhm.
Pickerington, Ohio. And it was actually one of the original restaurants, but it was owned by the original owner of the International Damon's chain, Jack Beard and Frank
Oh.
Simonetti. And so they had really their hand in a lot of exclusive things. Like they were creating international brands, international recipes, and they were also doing test kitchens for other restaurants. So I really stumbled across something big working there. And then I went from there, I stumbled across a tiny little soup salad sandwich shop called Zuppa, Zuppa, in Upper Arlington, where I met Steve Rayo, who to this day I believe is Columbus's greatest chef and Columbus's most hidden talent, which he's not hidden because many people have had his food, but yeah. So Steve Rayo, he groomed me. Uh, he groomed me until I came to the Brownstone on Main, which changed my life. That was the a New England, or excuse me, New Orleans style culinary restaurant with valet parking. It was black owned, and it was the first time I had experienced black excellence as far as like knowing that there was a society of people that had like careers and business minded, like minded people that all could be in one place at one time. And it was amazing to me to see that coming from Portsmouth, Ohio, where there was just not much of that on a large scale. And it was there that I cooked for President Barack Obama before he was president. I cooked for many celebrities: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mary J. Blige, LeBron James, Jim Tressel, all the Ohio State Buckeyes. For a 4-year period, used to come and get my ribs. They would bring the freshman recruits to the Brownstone just to have my ribs, my gumbo, my fried green tomatoes with the roasted red pepper remoulade, my crab cakes with the goat cheese and crab meat. I had so many unique recipes there that I was able. There were most of them passed down, but I enhanced them. I started off as a prep cook there. I was hired as a prep cook. At the same time, they hired a brand new chef who was the first white chef that they have ever hired. His name was Eric Gordon. He became my ultimate mentor. They hired us the same day, and he was a little nervous because he was going to be the first white chef ever at this place. I was nervous because I had come from Portsmouth, and I had come from a place where um, uh, we're just being black was a minority, and I was never in a situation where I was amongst so many of my peers at one time in one place. Especially that was a high end restaurant. Most of the cooks there had no culinary training, but were the most excellent cooks I had ever come across. It was amazing. It was a crazy experience. It was high end mixed with just everyday people, and it was where I learned that you didn't have to come from culinary background to be a great chef. And it was
Wow,
I
that's
had great
amazing.
experiences there. Yes.
So, from that point, can you take us back to what was next for you?
Okay, so after I worked at the Brownstone, Eric Gordon had gotten fired. The chef that I told you I was hired at the same time, he had gotten fired, and he had went to a hotel to work, the Concourse Hotel, which was at the time the major uh, the major conference center outside of the airport in Columbus. So as soon as you got off the airport and you came out the airport, it would be the first hotel you would essentially run in across, and it was filled with conference rooms. He called me there and asked me if I wanted to come. The Brownstone was on the decline. I had left there actually. I had went to a little restaurant called Restaurant 8. It wasn't the same pace as the Brownstone. I tried to go back a couple months later. It wasn't the same. Eric had called and offered me a job at the hotel, and I had gone there. And there I had worked under head chef Dave. I forget his last name. I don't want to say the wrong name, but it was the first time I had met outside of culinary school a master chef. He was a master chef, and he simply, I couldn't believe that I was working for this guy, but he had retired, didn't like retirement, and he wanted to come back and be of service to the people. So he took the job at the Concourse, which was a big enough challenge for him, but he didn't have to have the strenuous stuff that a chef would have to do. You had sous chefs and a line of sous chefs that could do the job for you. So he taught me intricate things about the game, the culinary game, that I just never knew that I just never knew existed. He taught me about the love. He taught me about the love, the importance of the love, and what the love does that transform you from a regular chef to a unique chef that cannot be stopped if you cook with love, a certain kind of passion. And he taught me that. He made Eric Gordon better, who I already thought was a mentor. He taught me excellent knife skills. He taught me uniformity is key. He taught me how to eat with my eyes first. He taught me every ingredient known to mankind and what its purpose was, what its place in the culinary world was. And those things have formed me into who I am today. So after I worked with Chef Dave and Chef Eric again for the next time, at the concourse, something drove me to come back to Portsmouth, fight for custody of my children, and to just really try to start something here. And so I came back to Portsmouth. I got custody of my children, and I started really. I didn't want to lose my culinary prowess, so what I started doing was targeting people that I thought would have loved the culinary experience, the catering experience, but they otherwise either couldn't afford it or didn't think they could afford it, or didn't want to get basically robbed by some of the places that overcharge. So I started basically selling myself for a low flat rate to people that were less willing to pay or didn't think they could have the ability to pay. And I started really having intricate menus and just doing what I could to make people feel special in that moment and charge them as least as I could to make a living. And then I got noticed for the celebrity chef events with the counseling centers. And then that just became a whole nother level of exposure to people and bringing culinary to Sauter County.
Now, that was a fundraising event, the celebrity chef events.
Yes, ma'am. It's a fundraising event that was going on pre-COVID, and it was a way to raise money for the summer outreach program that was sponsored by the Counseling Center, which is, I've always been a big fan of people in recovery and their abilities to have a better life after their biggest falls. So I volunteered, and I was the head chef. Me and a guy named Nick Monovan headlined the event for 5 years. I came up with the menus, and we would come up with a makeshift staff. We would plan 10 months out of the year. We meet once or twice a month, and it would be the most amazing things ever. And we would come up with these great concepts. Gina Collinsworth, Melissa Witt and company, from the counseling center. They were amazing, and they had these great visual concepts. We would match them with the meals. It'd be amazing. So
Um, so it seems like there was a lot of money raised during the time that you were doing that. Is that correct?
yeah, we raised over $100,000 in my tenure as the one of the head liners of the celebrity chef events. One of the greatest accomplishments of my life, to raise that much money for a program that has always been near and dear to me, the summer outreach program.
So that is for children that are with their parents that are in recovery. Is that
No, no, no. The summer outreach program is actually open to most kids in the county. Although a lot of kids outside the county don't, outside of the inner city, don't really always know about it. There's been a attempt to outreach more of those people, but it's really a place where kids can go to learn great things about themselves and about service and about their the nature and about love for others. Um, it's just amazing. So
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. Um, so then at some point you was the catering first or your hot sauces line? Which came
no,
first?
no, no, no. Okay, no, I've been catering since I came back to Portsmouth. I've been a
Okay.
licensed caterer since 2015. My first catering venture was called Will Robinson's Caters for a Cause. I've always been a passionate person of service. I've always felt like giving back. I've always been blessed to have people reach out to me with a fight of my son's muscular dystrophy from the time he was diagnosed. And so I just love to be of service and to give back. It's what I love to do. Sometimes to my own detriment, but I just love people. I love giving back and I love to help.
That's wonderful. So then tell us about Thump.
Okay, so well, Thump. Okay, so Thump is actually so before Thump, if I may.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Certainly.
so before Thump, I had worked at Patties and Pints. It was my first big restaurant job in Sauter County, where I was exposed to all the people. Other than that, I was kind of like a legend, an undercover legend. And it's like, you heard of this Will guy? Have you tasted his food? And that was the reason I was contacted by Tim Wolf, who was one of the owners of Patties and Pints. And he said, look, man, I'm opening this restaurant, and the only person I want is you. And we went into the war room, mind you, for about 3 months and came up with the perfect menu to open to and open Patties and Pints to rave reviews. And it was there I eventually came up with Will Robinson's famous dry rub that they serve to this day there. That ended up being bottled. It was my first product in my life ever bottled, and it was a great accomplishment. And because of that, I drew the notice of the people that initially invested in me in Thump. They knew that I had a culinary history. So to bring you back to Thump, I had gone on, left Portsmouth, left Patties and Pints. I had gone to work back with Steve Rayo from Zupas, who was one of my first mentors. He had a job waiting for me that was supposed to change my life, the most money I was ever going to make in the culinary world in Columbus, Ohio. And when I got there, I worked there 2 weeks and COVID hit. And
Oh,
they had the number one wedding venue in Columbus, Ohio, and it completely decimated the business.
mm,
So after that, I came back to Portsmouth. I tried to go back to Patties and Pints. It wasn't the same. And I just wanted to be a full time caregiver to my son, Brylan, and a full time father. And that's what I did until I went back to Columbus to work for the golf clubs at Little Turtle, a country club. And I was working there when my son got sick again. He had to have a feeding tube inserted, and there was no one here in Portsmouth that could deal with a feeding tube for a child, a teenager. And so I had to leave my job abruptly. And when I announced on social media, which I had gathered a following on, that I had to leave my job, which was painful both financially and mentally, I was reached out to to invest in. If I wanted to create another product to sell, they said they believed in my ability to create products and to move them, and they thought that I would be successful at that. So they invested in me, and I created Thump.
Wow. Which is a line of sauces, and you said rubs.
Yeah,
So
well,
you,
there's no rubs yet. The future had been to create dry rubs in the plans, but the sauce it's originally 9 sauces and 2 wing sauces, and all available online. But I must admit, going forward, although I have started these, most Thump was started out of love and my ability. Part of the reason why I signed on for this deal was because they exclusively offered to help finance my fight against muscular dystrophy. So a portion of every bottle in its contractual form was to go to the fight to end muscular dystrophy, namely the Little Hercules Foundation, which is the foundation I asked for by choice, which is a foundation I know in Columbus, Ohio, that who does what they say they're going to do with their money. And
mm,
so the wing sauce, 2 wing sauces were created. Wing for because I have a friend named Maxine Malone, who is one of the creators of Wings of Hope. It's another organization here located in Sauter County, and they basically give kids an alternative to the streets. That's all I can, pretty much in a
right.
nutshell. Guided wisdom, love, nurturing, and so I created the wing sauce for the Wings of Hope because they wanted the Miss Maxine approached me with the thought of building a handicap accessible park because when Brylan was in summer outreach, the same outreach I try to raise so much money for, he could never participate in what the other kids could participate in because he didn't have any ambulation. And so he was confined to a wheelchair, but they would always find ways to include him somehow.
Hmm.
And so it had been on her heart to try to create a handicap accessible park for kids of all abilities to play, which is why I wanted to help her venture by donations. And my investors offered me the opportunity to make the wing sauces, and they offered to put $1 of every bottle towards the effort to build a handicap accessible park for kids of all ability to play.
Well, it's amazing. And that's ongoing, correct? The Banyan Park
Well,
fundraiser?
it is ongoing, but I have ventured off on my own with my brother to start Thump Ohio because my investors for Thump, they want to focus on nationwide things, and my passion's here. My passion's here. So I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like I haven't had the feedback that I wanted so much on the promises that we've had to the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. Although we were able to already donate $1,000 to the park such situation, I have bigger ambitions. So right now, I'm thinking that I can serve my community better by taking the back seat on the Thump things right now, remaining a part of it, but taking the back seat and trying to do more fundraising events here directly so I can funnel things directly where I have control myself, full control. Because my
Mm,
heart is with the people of Sauter County. It's just what
mm,
it is. My heart is with the people. My fight is with muscular dystrophy. And I feel like what I have learned in the culinary game and what I feel like I have the ability, God-given ability to do now in culinary wise, I feel is unmatched. And I feel like I'm a better version of myself without any restrictions of anything, and just as Will Robinson and not as Thump or not as anything else. I want to thrive and help people as Will Robinson, and I want them to know my name.
mm. You also had a stint at a local retirement community.
Yes, yes, I did a Hillview Retirement Center,
That must have been
and
fun.
I loved it. I loved it. I love elders. I love the children, the young, and I love the ambitious.
Mm,
Um, I think I think everybody else caters to themselves, and those are the people that need catered to and listened to the most.
Mm. Um, there's been locally a competition with you and another restaurant. Can you give us a
That is
little
correct.
background on that?
Yeah,
It sounds
Ollie's
like
Burgers and Barbecue.
it's friendly competition, correct?
Yeah, yes. Let me tell you. So it's Ollie's Burgers and Barbecue. And I want to point out that the owner, Kyle Stapleton, is one of a kind. He's top notch. He's a man of service. He completely funds these operations on Mondays when the restaurants close. He buys all the ingredients for everyone included. And if there's excess food, he'll find a charitable event for it, or he'll do something charitable for it. He is a man of complete service, and he's always been inspired. Listen, the way he tells me is there's three major players in the culinary game in Portsmouth, Ohio, Sauter County, especially through catering. He says there's the Sauter River, which is an $8 million plus a year company. Okay. There's Ollie's, which is multi-million-dollar a company. And then there's Will Robinson Catering, Will Robinson was voted by his peers as the number one caterer in Sauter County last year by the Portsmouth Daily Times, might I add. And I've never had a brick and mortar building a day in my life. I only call the people that need me, and I only show up in kitchens that are insured, unfortunately, because I don't have a brick and mortar. And so I am a licensed caterer, and I am certified ServSafe, but I just always been called to the people where they need me the most. And I've only wanted to affect the people that didn't believe that they could have the experience that I can give them. I don't know why. I love everyone, and I'm not saying there's a group of people that I would alienate because I'm not built like that, but I feel like there's a group of people out there that need to feel food for their soul, and they need to bite into food, and they need to know it was made prepared, especially for them, to give them hope. You know what I mean? Because
Mm,
the palate is the way to the palace. I'm telling you right now.
mm. I like that phrase. So, in the competition, is tell us a little bit how that works. I mean, do you guys have
Okay.
a particular item that you're going to do that
Oh,
week or something?
yeah, it's completely unorthodox. That's what makes it so fun. So what they do is everybody creates whatever they want. There's no set menu, no set basis. So what you have to do is make something that tastes better than everything else everybody else makes. So Ollie's had done this amongst themselves many times. I had been a judge many times, but I found myself deeply in awe at the passion that everyone of I'm sorry. Now, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
My daughter was calling me. Okay,
Oh,
so every one of those every one of those cooks that would put out a dish to me, I just tasted so much love, and I wanted to be a part of that action. I wanted to be a part of that action. I said, Ollie, I want to be a part of this action because I didn't feel like you could ever lose to people, a group of 5 or 6 people that cook with the same passion. I felt like there's no losing. And I felt like if I showed up, I could give them the missing elements of what I thought they needed. Like I show up at 11 o'clock for an 11:30 competition, and I got my groceries with me, and I set up, show out, and get out. And I usually win in the process, or as they say in England, in the proceeds. You know what I'm saying? And I know I have their respect. I don't mind when I don't win because I want everybody to feel what it feels like to be a winner. And I always feel like a winner because I know what I put on the table. I know what I put on the table. So I just think it's a great thing that Kyle does, and I think it brings up the morale of his team, and it gives them the ability to face the week better than they could ever do under any normal circumstances. I mean, it's just a great thing, and I really appreciate that. And I will be a part of those competitions as long as they'll have.
mm. It sounds like a lot of fun, actually. And
Yeah,
then
I do
there's
want to
something.
say that this. I want to say this Monday they're going to roast a whole hog with the Kickin' Ash Barbecue collaboration with Kickin' Ash Barbecue, which is owned by a policeman, and they're going to do a fundraising for the Shop with the Cop Christmas program this summer on Monday. So Monday from 11 to 2:30, they're going to be having a whole hog, $12 foods, and we're going to, as a competition, we're going to provide the side dishes to go into the competition will be through the side dishes this week from 11 to 2:30 at Ollie's Barbecue to sponsor Shop with a Cop along with Kickin' Ash Barbecue and Will Robinson's Catering.
So is that something that's going to be repeated or just this one event?
This is going to be the one event for the Shop with the Cop program, but the culinary competitions will go on.
Okay, cool. So besides the catering, you have done some sports commentary. Can you go into give us an idea how that started? I mean, that's not catering, it's not cooking,
Nah.
but it's people.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I had such a spirited personality. My friend Robert Willard from Willersburg had got the opportunity to podcast some semi-pro football games in 2014 with then the Kentucky Warriors, which eventually became the Portsmouth Warriors. They won a national championship, and I happened to be their podcaster that year. So it went so well that Rob asked me if I wanted to podcast my high school alumni, Portsmouth Trojans. And I told him I absolutely did. And so I started TrueTrojan.com, which is starting year 9, starting in the fall, of podcasting play-by-play sports for the Trojans. And I have a whole different persona on True Trojan. I'm Will Rob along with my main man, Nils Musburger. You know how we get down. TrueTrojan.com.
Oh, that's amazing. So yes, I didn't realize it was a podcast. So I have not interviewed another podcaster before. So that's interesting.
Yay.
A first for me.
A first for me to be interviewed by a third for me. But it's still great. You have a very unique personality. I do appreciate the invite.
Well, this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted, and I ask everyone that's a guest what that means to them, because it's something different for everyone, that quote. So what does it mean to Will Robinson?
Well, I don't know. I think ironically, I think it's ironic that I'm on this show because I have learned in the last year how important it is to be connected to nature and to be connected to yourself and the universe more. I've learned a lot about being the best version of yourself and making those sacrifices necessary to do so. I think that Bloom Where You Planted to me is kind of touched on where we've talked about earlier. Like I felt like my calling has always been in Portsmouth, back to Portsmouth. I felt like I have been called here to explode culinary and to bring about the love of cooking, to not only show people how to cook, which I know the Food Network started on that, but to teach people how to feed the soul and to feed other people. One thing that, not to take away from the first question, but one thing I also did that I never got to mention was I was a part of a 24/7 dads class is what I called it, through Highland Head Start. And I did the class for 3 years. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to teach men how to be more of role players and role models and not role players. Men think that they go to work and come home, pay the checks, and they've done their job. And they don't realize that people follow us. A lot of people follow us. And even strong women that are self-sufficient love to follow a strong man. They love it. And it's our job to be to be the great leaders. I'll never forget that one of the best projects I ever did was I took the men. So we would meet at this place. The mothers would go to a mother's class. The children would go to a children's class. The men would come to my class. And I remember one of the most important projects was I took the men and I called the police station. I told them we were going to go to the playground. There was going to be strange people around the playground. Do not worry if you get calls. I planted men around each side of the playground, and I tasked them to pay attention, to look nonchalant, but to pay attention to what kids do unsupervised, to see how kids are, how cruel they are to one another, how loving they are to one another, how helpful they are, how much they cuss, what they do when people aren't around. Because everybody knows on a nice day, a parent is sending their kids to the store, especially if they live across, or to the park, especially if they live across the street, and they won't accompany them. They'll think if they can see them, that they know them, that they'll know they'll be okay. And it was so profound, some of the things that parents witnessed other kids doing and saying, whether it was a compassionate act, an act of kindness, or a scary act, or something like that. And it was part of the thing. And I also like to teach how important it was to have dinner at the dinner table and to know each other, put the phones down, and to know each other so you can help each other. You got to know each other to be able to help each other. You can't, my son comes in and tells me about his day. I can tell him how to get through that conversation, but I can't tell him about his life if I don't know him. And kids are allowed to come in the house and go straight to their rooms and play video games and be raised by strangers after spending a whole 8-hour classroom day by someone that's not their parent, that's teaching them everything they're supposed to know about life. So they're away from their parents and the connection of love and the disconnected society all day long. So I wanted men to know, like, we need to get back to the home, take pride in what we do, take pride in changing that diaper, take pride in making if they listen to you, tell them to sit at the table at 6 o'clock and don't miss dinner or don't eat, and play your role. So Bloom Where You Plant is making yourself viable where you are, where you're from, and where you can be the most effective.
That's amazing. So, what words of advice would you give someone that wants to do what you've done or are doing?
The word of advice would be, they will want you to believe that starting off in the culinary world, that you have to be addicted to drugs and be addicted to, you have to do all the things that cooks do to go up the pipeline to be your best version of yourself. I would say that there is a shortcut in life, not taking a shortcut to get through life, but a shortcut to your shortcomings. Listen to people like me when I tell you the best thing you can do is just to start off in the act of love, not the act of making a check, not the act of people pleasing, but the act of pure love. If you do it with love, it will sustain you. It will let you know if it's your calling. It will let you know if that's what you're supposed to do, and it will help you move on if you're not supposed to. If you do it in love, the stress of what comes with it, it will be futile. It will be futile. Do it with love. Do it with love. Do it with compassion, and make sure it's what you want to do, and you will flow like water.
Wow. So what's next for Will Robinson?
I've already started the next phase of my life, and that's being my best version of myself. Others. So I want to flourish as a butterfly now. I have enjoyed my caterpillar days. They've been fun. I've walked on all those legs, and now I want to walk on. I want to go through life with my 2 sets of wings. I've shed all the legs that I've walked on, and I want to be a beautiful butterfly for those around me.
So do you have any exciting projects coming up?
I have restarted. I have gone from Will Robinson's Caterers with a Cause, and I've started Will Robinson's Catering. And I want to focus on beautiful, affordable culinary that allows me to be paid and compensated for what I deserve, and still be able to service the people that I want to service. And that's the people that really My favorite question to people is, what is your budget? And I will give you the best menu you ever had for that budget. Because I can make a budget for everything. You just have to accept what your budget can afford. So I just want to be of service to those people. I do.
It sounds like you have a lot of excitement in your life, and your passion shows. It really does. And I just want to thank you, Will, for being a guest. You have shared so many fundraising things you've done, and it just sounds like you really have a lot of momentum in your life. So I really appreciate you being a guest. It's been a delight.
You have been a delight as well.
This is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. This is Laura Womack, your host, and I'm saying bye for now with Will Robinson, and I'm sure we'll catch up again sometime.
We sure will. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye now.